Okay, I think it's time we talk about Jake Paul. Now, first off, I just want to preface this by saying I am not in any way, shape, or form a Jake Paul fan. I actually kind of despise the guy as a human being. He gets on my nerves quite a bit, and he plays that role. He knows he gets under people's skin. He knows that a lot of people don't like him, so he drives more towards that. He's doing his job. He's doing what he knows he does best. And I think a lot of reason why people want him to fail is because of how they feel about him as a person. Now, the biggest thing is some people believe that Jake Paul and just the Paul brothers in general created this whole celebrity boxing thing, when that's far from the truth. And it wasn't even KSI, for some of you people thinking that he created it. Now, I will say they've elevated it to a whole new level, but celebrity boxing has been going on for a very, very long time. Hell, we had Shaquille O'Neal fight Oscar De La Hoya and Shane Mosley. We had Vanilla Ice fight Coolio, just to name a few, and the list goes on. There's quite a bit of celebrities that actually took up boxing in front of a big old crowd. So now that we have that established, let's talk about Jake himself and his boxing ability. Now, I give Jake all the props in the world for actually training and getting in the ring and fighting. Now, his opponents of choice are the biggest things that people judge, and rightfully so. His very first fight, which is fair to say, they were on equal grounds. Him and Deji, equal grounds, their first debut amateur fights. Nothing wrong with that. Then he fought Gibb for a professional fight, which Gibb had no reason being in the ring, let's be honest. Jake was actually starting to take it a little bit serious. And then we had the Nate Robinson, which again, Nate had no business being in the ring. So far to this point, Jake has not fought a single fighter. That's been the biggest complaint. And then we get into Ben Askren, who, a smart decision by Team Paul, and we all know that. Ben Askren, not a striker at all, but it was supposed to build that credibility for Jake Paul. And finally, we get the T Wood, Tyron Woodley, a man who could actually do damage, a man that could put Jake Paul down and push him to his very limits. Now, I, for one, am very disappointed in Tyron, mainly because he didn't step on the gas when he needed to. And I think that's why he didn't win the fight. He just would not pursue when he needed to. But that does give Jake Paul a lot more credibility for multiple reasons. For one, like I said, he's willing to train hard, bust his ass. He's willing to get in the ring. And not only get in the ring with just anybody, he's willing to get in the ring with a champion who's a striker. May not be a boxer, but Jake Paul isn't a real deal boxer. He's on his way to doing that. But the fact that he got in the ring with T Wood, that shows a lot. I got a lot of respect for him as a boxer, not as a person. Remember, I don't like him as a person. I'm just looking at him purely as a boxer. So I give him props for that. And even more so, the guy went 8 rounds. That's not easy. For people who don't know, who've never been in the ring before, going 8 rounds is not fucking easy. Hell, a lot of pros start off doing 4-round fights for a good chunk of their career. But he went 8 rounds. He struggled to get through those last rounds. Let's be honest now. He was in survival mode. But he made it. And Jake, props to you, my man. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of cardio. Cardio is the killer in the ring. It's not skill. Skill helps quite a bit, but it's cardio. And you prove that you can dig deep and finish the fight if you have to. That's a big question. He's never been in those deep waters, but Tyron pushed him in those deep waters and brought it to him And we got to see, could Jake last an 8-round fight? The answer is yes. Now, could he last against a pressure fighter? We don't know yet. And, he's slowly building himself up. He's smart. And he keeps on stating, which actually makes a lot of sense. What other boxer do you know that's fighting the caliber of people he's fighting? Double-edged sword there, though. Double-edged sword. Because, yes, the name isn't there. He's fighting big names where all these other pro boxers are starting off fighting no names. But they're fighting people, usually, that have been training boxing for years. Some of these amateurs, a lot of these amateurs actually have hundreds of amateur fights before they turn pro. Keep that in mind. That's something Jake is not realizing. Yes, they're not fighting big names. And I give him credit for the people that he's fighting. He's drawing in a crowd. He's getting toe-to-toe with UFC champions. Takes a lot of heart. Takes a lot of guts. I'm not taking that away from him. A lot of credit goes to Jake Paul. He's handpicking his opponents, yes. But in boxing and in fighting generally, that happens quite a bit. Look at Mayweather's career. He wouldn't fight a certain person unless he felt the time was right. Him versus Pacquiao, for instance, that was 5 years in the making until he felt the time was right. And that's all Jake's doing. He's cherry picking his opponents and make himself look good. Not something I'm a big fan of, but it's what the game has become. So now let's talk about Jake Paul's skill as a boxer. Now, personally, I feel like Jake is an amateur level fighter. And that doesn't mean anything negative. I just think he lacks the experience and technique to fight people like Canelo, which I want to talk about that in a second. People at an elite level. He's not an elite fighter. He's more of an amateur fighter that pushed pro a little early. Actually, pretty early. But it's not like that's never been done before. People do that all the time. They're called journeymen. There's actually a lot of amateurs that can beat some professional fighters. Just because they're amateur doesn't mean anything. It's just the experience and technique isn't quite there. That's all that means. There's levels to boxing. You're going to hear that a lot if you're ever around any boxers, trainers, anywhere in the environment of boxing. You're going to hear that line many, many times. There's levels to boxing, and that is the God honest truth. Where I give Jake a lot of props, I also had to tell him that you're not quite an elite fighter. You're not the future of boxing. You're doing a lot. Now, a lot of people think he has no place in boxing. But like I mentioned before, celebrity boxing is nothing new. And he's actually bringing it to a whole new level than what it was, at least. And he's opened the doorway for a lot of people. Freak shows in boxing are nothing new. There's always freak shows. Hell, I participated in a Tough Man. I would consider that a freak show in itself, and I loved it, and I would do it again. And if you don't know what a Tough Man is, it's basically they open the doors to anybody off the street who wants to sign up to fight. Training, no training, record or no record. Come if you want and fight. So there's always room for that circus because it draws in people. People want to see it. And if people are willing to pay and spark interest to box, then by all means, it deserves its place in boxing. Just as Jake has a place in boxing in his own lane. Now when he tries to call out elite fighters like Canelo and such, first off, you're not the same weight class as Canelo. Canelo's like Mayweather weight class, along with Conor McGregor. You keep on wanting to fight these little tiny guys, and well, you're not in their weight class. That would not happen. Now I know your brother fought Floyd, and there's a big gap there, but there's a reason why that was an exhibition for multiple reasons. First off, Floyd's retired, and there's no way the boxing commission will allow that to be an actual fight. Now I don't think Jake is in his career where he can fight an actual real deal boxer. So yeah, that's basically what I have to say about Jake Paul and boxing. Does he deserve a place? Yes, he has his own lane, and it draws people in, and hopefully it shows people real boxing. Like, they can see Jake Paul, be a fan of Jake Paul, or hate Jake Paul enough to watch him to hopefully he loses, and then see boxing, actually look up real fighters, and then get into that, and the cycle begins. You know, that he has a lot of pull, and he deserves his spot. And anybody who's trying to discredit him, you're just trying to hate on the guy because you don't like him personally. Let's be honest. That's all it comes down to. You're getting your personal feelings involved, and you're not looking at the big picture. The guy's training hard, he's putting in the work, and he's drawing interest to the sport. Gotta respect the man for that. As much as you want to hate him, I hate him too. Honestly, I really hate him, and I think I could beat his ass. I can never get that fight because I'm not a name. I'm not somebody that can bring in numbers, but hey, you come back to Ohio, you need a sparring partner, you want to go hard, let me know, Jake. I know you won't give me a fight, but we could spar our asses off and I'll beat the shit out of you. I just hit my mic, but let that be known. But anyways, he deserves a spot. Give him his roses, but fuck Jake Paul at the same time, and I'm out.